Now it's time for Hot for Your House.
Sarah Listy, Tool Girls Garage, host of Murder House Flip Over on Roku. Welcome to Around the House, my friend.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
This is great. You know, you and I go way back, and you are such a huge person out there. Whether or not you're working on projects around your place to doing that crazy show on Roku where you combined true crime and home improvement. How crazy is that?
Right? It was such a neat concept. I remember when they pitched it to me thinking, like, I would have never thought of this. This is amazing, but it makes sense. One of the producers of CSI came up with the idea. So it makes so much sense. And it was such a cool experience to be a part of. There's a ton of heart, but it was so much fun. But thank you so much. You guys are amazing.
Well, it was so fun to watch because I know you personally, and watching some of your natural reactions, it was just so honest, which I loved.
It was funny. I had a longtime friend, somebody I've met. I think I was 2 when I met her. And she literally messaged me. She was like, me and my parents are watching this show, and it's literally just you grown up. And I'm like, thank you. I took that really well. That was really nice. It was so fun. And it was, I mean, such a weird concept, right? But it was just a cool experience. I mean, that was my first real TV thing. So it was fun. You know, I hope we get to do it again.
I wanted to ask you, Sarah, tools out there, you know, there's so much is changing out there when it comes to battery operated things. Do you have some favorites out there for 2023 that you've either wanting or you've gotten that you're enjoying?
You know, there is a lot of new battery powered tools, really depending on what industry you're in. There's been some really great things coming out of Skill, which I don't know how familiar you are with them, but you know, they went through their big rebrand a couple years ago. They just announced that they're bringing out a track guide for one of their new circ saws, which is a big deal for like an entry level sort of, like a really budget friendly, but good quality tool lineup. I mean, now you can actually get cordless miter saws that can power through virtually everything. I mean, World of Concrete, we saw all kinds of really impressive battery tech in concrete tools from like Hilti and Makita. I mean, it was mind blowing. And, you know, brands like DeWalt are really exiting more of the carpentry side and entering more of that concrete heavy duty side, you know, in terms of what they're launching. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens this year with that, because, you know, there are those high end carpentry brands like Festool that announced their cordless table saw. And I'm going to be honest, that saw is phenomenal. I mean,
that looked dope. I was like the whole bed moving with it and stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is beautiful.
I mean, it is literally everything you could want in like a job site table saw if you're a carpenter, right? Like I imagine if you're doing like a ton of different like ripping and stuff like that, maybe it's not just because it is a small footprint, but it like goes down and fits in a sustainer.
Nice. Wow.
And I don't think any of us really talked about that because there was so much else to talk about. But it was a beautiful saw. The miter gauge, I mean, it was just so smooth, so crisp. It was absolutely amazing. You know, it's interesting to see like a Festool. Again, I associate them with like fine carpentry, right?
That's the Bentley Rolls Royce of power tools. I mean, and they're
beautiful tools. There's sanders, the Domino. I mean, we've talked about this before. God, how can you not love the Domino? But you know, they're breaking out like a recip saw and a couple other things that I was like really interested in and curious to see how it gets received when people get their hands on it. Cause it was great in person to demo it, you know, it was really wonderful. So it'll be interesting to see brands like that kind of, you know, keep transitioning, you know, through that. I mean, Bosch has a lot of great stuff coming out and, you know, they specialize in like concrete and carpentry, right? To me, that's their bread and butter. Whereas a brand like Makita, a lot of concrete, a lot of outdoor, a lot of carpentry, but they really hit a lot of points. You know, Bosch really kind of hones in on a few different things.
And they're the masters of concrete out there, which I love. Those guys have been just, you know, so good at that. And then, you know, on the woodworking side too. So you're right. All great brands. And that's the hard part with people, I think, out there now is when you dive into power tools, you pretty much, and that maybe it's good that you can grab a brand and almost do anything you want with it within a battery setup, right?
Yeah, I mean, and there's those brands like Ryobi, right? Like Cobalt is another one that like is a store brand. They're manufactured by a really good manufacturer. Of course, you and I know this. There's only a handful of people that actually make the tools. Um, which is interesting. They're just built to different specs and different details. But they have those like cool specialty tools. Like Cobalt came out with a drain auger, right? That's rad. Like that is a little different for a brand like Cobalt, right? But I love it. I think it's amazing. A PEX cutter too is another one that's gotten some love. They have like the cordless caulk guns, but like Ryobi, a lot of lifestyle stuff there, which is neat. I mean, so it's
Didn't I see a cordless glue gun you were playing with from them?
I've had that for years, and I'm not gonna lie to
Really?
you, I have given, like, 4 of those as gifts over the years because it is one of those tools that is amazingly handy. Like, I reach for it all the time. I mean, whether it's crafts with the kids or a quick fix for something or, I think I was showing an example of, like, making a mold for epoxy, which is it's great for, right? It dries a lot quicker than silicone does. But it's one of those things, like, you wouldn't have thought it would have been that great, but, like, it really, really is, and they have a lot of stuff like that. I mean, brands like Dremel too, a lot of that lifestyle kind of, interesting tools. I feel like it's gonna be a big year. I think it's gonna be a big year in outdoor OPE too.
Yeah,
A
no
lot of
kidding.
cordless
That outdoor
OPE.
power equipment is big out there. You're seeing,
Yeah.
all the big riding mowers now with, with battery powered and you can do 5, 6, 7 acres supposedly on some of these things, on some of these zero
Yeah.
turn battery powered. I'm like, that's pretty impressive not to have to worry about getting the gasoline out and the oil out and deal with it.
Well, I was one of the first that got to test out the Ego Z6, right? So I have yeah, I have the 42. I've had it now for a little over 2 years, I think. When it first came out, I got it before it was available in stores. And then I also have the 52-inch. And I have 3 acres and it is phenomenal. Like I don't think I could have ever prepared myself for how great that mower is. And just it holds the charge so well and the charge is quick. And then it literally just it's just like it's better than any gas powered mower I ever had. So I can't say enough good things about that. And even with like the bagger, the accessories that are coming along with that is, I mean, it's so amazing. And of course, they're launching their new like they joke and call it was like the Mario Kart kind of wheel. I think it's called the E-Steer if I'm remembering correctly. But of course, Ryobi's doing a lot of that too. There's a couple other brands that are bringing out like that cordless. John Deere is even bringing out some like cordless mowers and ATVs or UTVs. So it'll be interesting to see, right? I mean, it's I think it's great technology. I'd love to see it keep advancing and keep pushing. And I notice more power tools now, really, regardless of price point. They're so
Yeah.
much more reliable than say 10 years ago. They're
Oh my
so much
gosh, it's
better.
not close.
Yeah,
And the price points are getting down there. I mean,
yeah,
I'll be the first to say Festool is not for every consumer out there. That's for
no,
sure. Cause you might have to sell your first vehicle you own to buy one of those tools. But,
sell a kidney
you
or
know,
two,
it's just what it is, you know?
right? But it's funny. I talked to a friend of mine, Thibaut. He's a French Canadian carpenter on Instagram. I think you've met him at a couple of events. Really nice person, and he is a full time like Finnish carpenter, right? And he was talking about how the Festool products, like they just save him a lot of time, and how that productivity, yields that result where investing that money makes sense for him. And I think you and I've talked about that think that's like that for most of us. Not everybody is going to need every tool, right? But if you're doing it as a professional or you're doing it for like a huge project and like if I'm replacing floors, you better believe I'm going to buy a flooring saw for that, like 100%.
How can people track you down? We'll have you on
Oh
again. Don't
gosh.
worry.
Right. So I'm everywhere on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube under Tool Girls Garage. And then of course my blog is toolgirlsgarage.com.
Sarah, thanks for coming on today. Always
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Great catching up.
I know. So good to talk to you, bud. Have a good one. And thank you so much for having me.